Well, we're going offense. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to another episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. I'm going to catch this pen the third time once I throw it. Told you, Grossi. And today, the Green Bay Packers had their picks at 54 and 87 and continued their offensive trajectory by drafting an offensive lineman and yet another wide receiver. This is the first time since 2020 that the Packers have gone back to back with their first three picks at offense. And let's not talk about that. We got Jordan Love out of that, but we don't talk about those other players. But let's talk about it because there is some confusion going on in Packers land, and I can understand why. Heading into this day, I would assume, hey, you go and get your first-round wide receiver, the first one in 23 years in Matthew Golden. I imagine that they were going to be going edge or CB, but turns out I was completely and totally wrong. And let's start off with that very first pick, talking about Anthony Belton from NC State with the 54th pick in the 25 NFL draft. This man, oh, he's a big man. He's 6'6", 332 pounds, played left tackle for the past 3 seasons at NC State. And Goody talked about in his post-draft press conference how much they loved his size, that he was measuring at 34. And honestly, that they're probably going to try him at tackle first. We talked about how he played left tackle in college, but we do have a need at right tackle, so I would not be surprised if you're going to have Belton competing for both positions. Now, Packers fans may be a little bit confused because, of course, we got Jordan Morgan in the first round last year. And on top of that, we brought in Banks and paid him a whole lot of money during free agency. But considering what Goody has done for these past few years as GM, it does make a bit of sense that he is just constantly going for the next offensive line, getting that depth, and getting multiple starters at multiple positions. He loves those hybrid guys, and while you have guys like Elton Jenkins, who's probably going to be playing at center this year, he just wants that flexibility and, of course, that depth so that Jordan Love, his $55 million quarterback, can be protected. On top of that, you look at Rasheed Walker and Zach Tom, both have expiring contracts after this upcoming season. Rasheed Walker, I think out of those two, would potentially be the casualty here, but Goody reiterated that they still want to try Jordan Morgan over at left tackle. They need to get Belton in the building and see where he's going to fit best, but the fact that he can play tackle before potentially moving him inside is what drew Goody to making this pick in the first place. And honestly, while I was surprised that this wasn't a defensive player, at least for the second round, I'm not going to lie, I can never really hate on getting too many offensive linemen, especially one built at 6'6". I mean, there's only going to be so many guys with that build and that kind of athleticism. So sitting here right now, I'm definitely not against the pick, though again, still a little head-scratching considering our current needs on defense. Then with pick 87 in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Green Bay Packers went wide receiver once again with Savion Williams from TCU. 6'4", 222 pounds, ran a 4.48 40-yard dash, a 1.52 10-yard split. This man is big and he is fast. And these two receivers that the Packers have drafted so far could not be more different. However, the similarity that Goody said in his press conference was that they can both play inside and outside. And we'll talk about that one second about what it means for the receivers that are currently on the team. But Savion Williams was utilized all over the place in TCU, whether it was in the run game, whether it was in the pass game, he was outside, he was in the slot, he was taking direct snaps. I mean, hell, he had 6 rushing and 6 receiving touchdowns this past season. And while he is a bit of a raw prospect and he does have some drops, he had 8 in 2024, Goody said he's not worried about those drops. He thinks that it can be fixed. While he does have special teams experience, Goody said that they don't treat him as a gadget player and they're going to try and commit to him as a pure wide receiver. And honestly, a guy who's 222 pounds, 6'4", and can run a 4.48, again, that athleticism is just jumping off the charts here. Now, of course, there's a couple things I want to talk about. First, before we get to the defensive side of things and the Packers not drafting any defensive players with their first 3 picks, let's talk about the wide receivers that are currently on the roster. You have Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson, who are currently scheduled to be unrestricted free agents after this upcoming season. We've talked about this and how Christian Watson is going to miss an extended amount of time this upcoming season. Now, Christian Watson also does have elite athleticism, and people were wondering when Matthew Golden was drafted, wait a minute, are we going to throw this guy on the outside because Matthew Golden is a little bit smaller? But now here comes Williams, who could definitely play on the outside outside, and people are wondering, is this a replacement for Christian Watson? While he's on the field, Christian Watson makes that offense better, and you could argue that he was the best wide receiver on the Packers last year, and he still missed extended amounts of time. Then you looked at Romeo Doubs, who of course had 2 major concussions while he's been on the Packers, and you do worry about that, and like I said, he is an unrestricted free agent after this current year. So I think there might be some doubt on the current slate of wide receivers that the Packers have, and on top of that, if you want to look a year further, both Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed, their contracts expire and they're free agents in 2027. So in the next 2 years, you're having all 4 of their major wide receivers, they're going to become free agents. So not only is this drafting for the future, but it does cause some questions on whether Goody does have a lot of confidence in the wide receivers that are currently on the team. Now, in his press conference, he said, no, we're just drafting best player available, and we're just seeing how the board falls to us, and this is why we're going and drafting these guys. But the reality is there's only so many wide receivers that they can keep on the team. And considering that wide receiver room had a pretty damn disappointing 2024 season after a pretty exciting 2023 season, I think this is just leaving some doubt about whether the wide receivers that we currently see are even going to make it, hell, even to this season, because I wouldn't be surprised if you're going to see somebody traded or cut before the year starts. So I am very curious to see what this upcoming summer is going to look like in the wide receiver room and also along the O-line. The Green Bay Packers are all about, well, whoever is going to contribute the most, they are going to get the most playing time, and especially at wide receiver, with Christian Watson missing time, these guys are both going to have opportunities to play, both Golden and Williams. But yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see how that is going to sort itself out. And training camp, oh, it's going to be a fun one this year. Now let's talk about the fact that the Packers have not drafted any defensive players in the 2025 NFL Draft. All 3 of the guys that they selected were pre-draft visits, and on top of that, Goody just keeps on reiterating that, hey, we just went with best player available. However, the Packers do have some drastic needs at pass rusher. We talked about how bad their pass rush was last year. While they were top 10 in sacks, they were 26 in pass rush win rate, which is really not good, and we saw many times, anytime the Packers rushed 4, they would just not get home at the quarterback. Eric Stokes, he went over to Vegas and we got Hobbs, but he does have some injury issues, and while he has some high upside, we still have to worry about corners because what the hell is going on with Jair Alexander? He has not been dealt at this draft, and I imagine if he was going to get dealt, he was going to be worth at least a day 2 pick. But honestly, maybe Jair Alexander is going to be staying with the team. He was working out with Xavier McKinney. He followed Matthew Golden on Instagram, and I don't even know why I'm using that as a point, but this is where I'm at this point because I don't know what we're doing with our cornerback room. Now, I will say if Jair Alexander winds up staying on the team and he's healthy, then I feel a lot more confident. However, oh boy, we definitely need to improve at pass rusher. And Goody was asked this during the draft conference and saying, hey, you needed to improve your pass rush. You could have done that with a top 100 pick. And Goody said, well, we got a lot of confidence in the guys in the room. Of course, they did get a new defensive line coach as well. And you're hoping that guys like LVN can take that next step because it's been a disappointing 2 years. Ultimately, though, it does seem like the best pass rushers have been taken in this draft. So I'm very curious what the strategy is going to be on day 3. Are they just going to go all defense now after focusing the first 2 days on offense? Or are we just going to kind of let it rock with the defense that we had, which was good last year, but I think as everyone noted, could definitely improve. So for me personally, I'm at the point where I like all the picks that the Green Bay Packers have selected. I think that there's a ton of upside, of course, in Matthew Golden and his speed. You talk about Williams, 2 very different receivers, but you have that big-bodied receiver with a ton of athleticism. He's kind of like a larger Jaden Reed in how he was used in TCU. And then you talk about Anthony Belton, which is going to provide a lot of protection for Jordan Love, in which they're already investing a ton in offensive line, and you have 2 guys who are going to be gone by the end of the year if they don't re-sign him, though I do think Zach Tom is going to get re-signed. So it just seems like the Packers are shuffling things around on offense. And listen, as Packers fans, we were complaining for years that we wanted the Packers to invest in offense. And now people are going, hey, what the hell, including myself. And so at this point, I like the picks individually. I like the players. I think they're going to be able to contribute for the Packers. However, the lack of pass rush help is the thing that I'm really scratching my head on, because if Jair Alexander stays, I can forgive that. But if LVN doesn't take that next step, if Rashawn Gary doesn't continue to improve, if Kenny Clark has another down season, that gives me a bit of concern, especially in a draft where defensive line was highly touted as being incredibly deep. And there's still a bunch of guys on the board the Packers can go take. However, the sun's getting real low. So I'm very curious to see what day 3 is going to look like. And as of right now, they're going all offense. Let's hope it's really damn good. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You know how to find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at Tom Grossi Comedy, all social media see down below. A big shout and thank you to all the patrons and YouTube members for supporting this channel. And thank you so much for all the support here during draft week in frickin' frackin' Green Bay. We will be doing a fan event tomorrow from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central in the Bellin Health parking lot in Titletown, right next to Lodge Kohler. It's totally free. You don't need to go into the draft experience. Looking forward to seeing you there. We're going to help out Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and hopefully get some folks to sign up to be mentors to the youth, giving back to that community. And we'll be back tomorrow as I announce an NFL draft pick for the Green Bay Packers. But folks, thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi, and as always, go Pack Go.